Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Gyan Pravah episode number 162. This is the Gyan Pravah is a daily podcast series featuring visionary personalities from India and all over the world. I am Dr. Sunita Shamsundar, chairperson of the Fogsi Gynae Oncology Committee, the host for the 9th of every month. So this is actually a presidential program started by our president, Dr. Sunita Tandulwadkar, who's a visionary leader of Fogsi and who started with this year's theme, Ek Rashtra, Ek Mission, Swasth Nari Samriddh Vatan, Har Ghar Fogsian. So this resonates deeply with our mission to empower women and enrich lives. And truly, all her programs are actually reaching every home in India. Through her impactful initiatives like Know Your Numbers, Sampurna Swasthya Janma Abhiyan, Aparajita Sampurna, Do Tike Zindagi Ke, the flagship Eagle project, Arogya Yog Yatra, Gyan Pravah, which is this podcast series, and Fogsi Anubandh, that's connecting with all the societies all over India, along with 7 publications. Then the app, which is exclusively being developed for the women in our country, it's called the Arogya Sakhi app. We are weaving a strong and inclusive fabric that connects every Fogsian to the heart of the association. So these efforts ensure that each member feels valued, involved, and an integral part of our shared mission. Some of the initiatives for cervical cancer are the Do Tike Zindagi Ke, launched on World Cancer Day, the Fogsi IMA project on training 50,000 IMA doctors on HPV vaccination. There's a Wave 2 educational program for Fogsians on evolving science of HPV and new techniques to handle the myths. This is basically for educating them for the HPV vaccine, to train 25,000 Fogsians on the HPV vaccination, Swasth Nari Abhiyan Yatra and the Kumbh of HPV vaccination webinar series. And then there are new programs being launched every day, which is by our visionary leader. So that is our unstoppable.
Thank you, Sarita. Thank you so much. Beautifully, you covered everything. And one more important project which we are trying to work, Cervical Cancer Mukta Bharat, that is Nirmal Banaras Abhiyan. We have started with one society and we believe that the government will put their attention more towards it. That is why we started with Banaras, with the constituency of our Honorable Prime Minister. Probably entire city in India deserve to be a Cancer Mukta Bharat. So thank you so much, Sarita. You beautifully cover all things. And I'm so glad that you got a visionary like Priya Abraham ji here on this podcast. And I'm sure that everyone will enjoy this podcast and it will be one of the best podcasts. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. I will introduce now Dr. Priya Abraham. So in today's podcast, we delve into the unseen yet incredibly impactful world of the microbes, a microcosm that shapes much of human health and disease. So we as gynae oncologists, we dedicate our efforts to, mastering complex surgeries, advancing chemotherapy and immunotherapy to fight cancer. But today I invite you to take a step back and reflect. Did you know that nearly half of all women's cancers are caused actually by the microbes? These tiny organisms, invisible to the naked eye, are responsible for not just cancer, but countless infections, diseases, epidemics, and even global pandemics. Understanding these microbes, especially the viruses, is no longer optional. It is essential. The more we learn about them, the closer we get to preventing, detecting, and ultimately curing many life-threatening conditions. And today we are privileged to have with us a pioneer in this field, a renowned virologist whose contributions have touched millions of lives. She has played a leading role in the development of vaccines and diagnostic tests and was at the forefront during the COVID-19 crisis as the director of the ICMR National Institute of Virology, where she helped validate numerous Indian testing platforms. So let me briefly highlight her remarkable journey. She is currently a senior professor in the Department of Virology at Christian Medical College, Vellore. Her areas of expertise include HPV and related cancers, hepatitis viruses, liver disease, and vaccinology. She has served as faculty at CMC Vellore since 1992. Deputy and Associate Director at CNC, Director of the National ICMR National Institute of Virology, Pune from 2019 to 22. Her work has earned prestigious awards, the Janani Award for Medical Research Leadership, the J.C. Bose Award, multiple Rotary Excellence Awards, the Sharda Shakti Award, the Rajiv Gandhi Mahila Shakti Award, and many more. And academically also, she is an impressive force with 243 peer-reviewed publications, over 9,700 citations, and an H index of 46. She serves on numerous national and international advisory boards and expert committees, including for the WHO, the Government of India, and organizations focused on HPV vaccination, viral hepatitis, measles, and rubella immunization, and polio eradication, among others. So her work bridges the lab and the clinic, the science and public health, prevention and policy. So please join me in welcoming our esteemed guest, who's a true leader in the world of virology and vaccine science. So welcome, Dr. Priya.
Thank you, Priyaji. Thank you for coming on a Fogsi platform. And I'm sure this is what is important is every day we evolve ourselves with the knowledge. And as she said, microbes, so important to know, to study, to be aware of. So these podcasts nowadays, Sarita, wherever I go, I was in Patna last weekend, everyone is saying only one thing, ki we hear the podcast. Because this is what in that podcast, in 45 minutes discussion, we can give so much of an important knowledge, messages, and educate our people in all the subjects. May it be academic, may it be non-academic, social background or anything. There's so much to learn from everyone. And I'm sure today's podcast, Sarita, you will bring out the best of the interview from her. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. And I'm so sad that in 2019 to 22, you were in Pune. I'm in Pune, but it was a COVID pandemic. And I know how beautiful our National Institute of Virology in Pune is. So maybe some other time we'll definitely meet personally.
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tandulwadkar and Dr. Shamsundar. Truly, it was a missed opportunity to meet you when I was in Pune. And I'm really, really honored to be in this particular podcast. And greetings to all the listeners today. And I'm really ripe and ready to answer your questions, Dr. Shamsundar.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Dr. Priya, let us, just get some questions and some information. So, coming to microbiology and virology, how did you get interested in this subject?
So all along, over my MBBS days, I was clearly interested in infectious diseases. I was very enamored by doing pediatrics. And then as a last minute decision, I sidestepped to laboratory medicine. Of course, as soon as I joined, I wondered whether I had made the wrong decision. But I must tell you today, after more than 32 years in the discipline, I have absolutely no regrets. I think we need to try and do our best and try and excel in whatever discipline we take, and not just be, nominal contributors or nominal members of that particular specialty. We should try to make a difference in that arena. So that's how my interest in infectious diseases brought me into this particular discipline, microbiology and then virology. And I must tell you, in a country like India, I think infectious diseases are going to keep us busy for a good long while.
Yes, definitely. So why virology in particular? They interest.
Virology, I was one of the first MD students actually to start my MD dissertation in virology. I worked with HIV initially, very early into the HIV days in our country. I started in 89, finishing up in 92.
Oh.
And those are very early days in our country. And I had the pleasure to work under Dr. Jacob John and another teacher called Dr. George Babu, who, sort of inculcated me into the discipline, and I've never looked backwards.
That's wonderful. That's great. Yeah. So what do you consider your significant achievements?
So I would start in a very broad way and then maybe fine tune. When I have always felt that whatever we develop in the lab, not just run an assay, but we develop, say, new serological assays, new molecular assays where we do new PCRs. All of this must contribute to a higher standard of care for the patient. So most of the work that we have done, be it a PhD thesis or just develop an assay, it has contributed to enhancing the kind of results and that would contribute to better care for the patient. So to give you an example, way back in the 90s, 1996 to be precise, we set up HBV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, PCRs in virology, perhaps the first in the country to do that. But that has turned out to be now a routine screening test for the immunosuppressed. Like if you look at dialysis patients or HIV-infected patients, they need to know in a more in-depth way whether they are truly infected, and also they might be considering treating these individuals. So we set up those assays very early. At that time, it was part of a research project. But today it has become part of management, screening them also for molecular assays. And we've also tried to introduce assays which are more cost-effective, more sensitive, more specific. Right. Assays also should have a high level of specificity. They shouldn't flag, excessively. Then the clinician is often misguided. And of course, I had the pleasure to start working with human papillomavirus going right back to 2004. Right. So I had a very nice PhD student as well who worked with me. I also had the unique privilege to work with my husband, who's a gynae oncologist. So jokingly, I would tell him, if the sample is not good enough, there's no dinner for you tonight. So then that's just a frivolous comment. But basically, I think we had a very good partnership going. Those were early days where we worked with Dr. Neerja Bhatla, Dr. Kirti Shah, and Dr. Patty Gravett, who were in Johns Hopkins then. We had a few collaborative projects, and I went on to have other collaborations in UCSF and within India. So that itself has been a wonderful journey. I've also been able to evaluate way back in 1999, India's first indigenous hepatitis B vaccine. Till then, we were dependent on Engerix B, which was, very expensive. It's a multinational company. And when Shanta Biotech started making its own hepatitis B vaccine, and we evaluated it against Engerix B, we actually found it was as good or better. And that opened the gate for a number of other Indian companies to make our own indigenous hepatitis B vaccine at a fraction of the cost. So that was very also, I found it was very gratifying to be able to evaluate and actually get good results, which then it could be something sustainable for our country. Then, of course, I've had because I've been in CMC involved in virology for a good long time. I have been honored to be part of many national advisory groups, as well as the WHO's advisory groups. be a Southeast Asian expert on HIV, hepatitis B, and STIs, and such like. The COVID task force at the WHO, and so on. So it's given me a lot of experience as well as an opportunity to be a voice for the global South, to say these are our challenges in the developing world. What we see in North America or Europe or other developed nations is not exactly the same challenge that we face in an LMIC such as ours. So I have never hesitated to put forward the view of what we have here in a country such as ours. And with my work with HPV, I could also sidestep to look at other cancers like HPV in the role of anal cancer, occasionally, very occasionally, vulva vaginal cancer, genital warts, as well as, even benign recurrent respiratory papillomatosis. We find a lot of children and we're able to detect 6 and 11 in these lesions.
Right.
So this has been useful for ENT surgeons to know. So we have digressed a little, and I think we have been of some, help and partnered with our clinicians.
That's wonderful. Really wonderful. Yeah. So probably when you started work with HPV, that maybe also be around the time that Harald Zerhausen was also.
Yes, I had the honor to meet him in 2005. That time, Dr. B.C. Das had organized a meeting in Delhi. That time, Dr. B.C. Das was part of ICMR, and Dr. Zurhausen had come with his wife for the meeting. And what an amazing man, so humble, so very humble. And I always think, truly great people are so humble. And yes, I did have the unique opportunity to meet with him, talk with him, and we actually discuss a lot of things over dinner.
Wonderful. That's really wonderful. Yeah. So what do you think were your challenges?
So I would get a bit personal here, and I would say that when I was doing my MD, I was already a mom. So I was a very young mom in, 25, 26, and then I started my MD. And when I was doing my MD, and here MD is quite a serious affair, it's not, and I was very focused at work, didn't waste my time. I was, always trying to get everything done, not expecting any allowances for the fact that I was a young mom. So I got the feeling that some of my male colleagues thought I was like hyper-focused, too result-oriented. And I would gently remind them that, for a young mother to actually try and excel in her area, she straddles two professions. Being a mom and running home well, looking after her child well, and also trying to do as best as she can in her professional space. So I said, that's the reason why I'm very focused and I want to do, be on the dot. So perhaps I might be seen as being way too serious. But and looking back, I think now I have realized that maybe, we need to be able to, it's easy to think that way now. When you're a young mom, you're really revving to go. So that was one, I felt a bit I felt people didn't easily understand the challenges of a young woman professional who's also, a young mom. The other challenge I felt was those clinicians who worked with us knew what we contributed, knew how much we tried to do our best to enhance care for the patient. But there are a group of clinicians who probably are not aware, and then they, just dismiss us as, inconsequential people who probably have a time pass kind of profession. And that's the last thing I wouldn't want to be considered, because I did not take it as a time pass. So these were the two personal, challenges I felt. And just by my work, I was trying to prove myself that I'm not just that kind of person. So those were my personal challenges.
True. Yeah, that's right. So I think I think when you are actually when you have to balance both family and work, you really don't want to, give out any extra or waste any time doing other things rather than
Exactly.
things that are the priority for you. Yeah, true. Yes. So, you did serve as a director of the National Institute of Virology. So, just tell us about that time and how did you find, being the director? And that was a challenging time as well.
Yes, I mean, all in all, looking back, I would say it was the most amazing time, 2019 to 2022. Yes, surely challenging. And I had joined as director of ICMR National Institute of Virology barely 2 months before the pandemic broke out. So
Mm,
I joined in mid-November, and by December, we were hearing about this novel pneumonia that was doing its rounds in Wuhan, in China, and being interested in infectious diseases and having a good team there, comprising physician scientists who are medical people as well as pure laboratorians. I got together with them and I said, look, we need to study this because this seems to be gaining more attention in the news. Let's just study what kind of pneumonia it is. And we actually sat down and started trying to make case definitions and case report forms based on the clinical criteria that was coming. There were some early publications as well as what we were seeing in media.
mm,
And so what we started doing was we started doing some dry runs. We requested for samples from hospitals that had severe acute respiratory illness. And my laboratory colleagues actually set up the PCR because the ICMR National Institute of Virology is already an international national influenza center. So we had a lot of contacts with WHO, so we could get the makeup of the reagents, and we got those reagents manufactured. We set up the PCR, and we were doing these so-called dry runs on suspected cases of severe pneumonia. And that gave us, some lead-in time to be able to actually run with it when the samples started coming to us. So as you know, the first sample was from a medical student who came back from Wuhan, went to Kerala, and she was feeling a little unwell. And then she presented herself to our field unit in Kerala. And from there, the sample came to us. And, we had set up two labs that were, testing these samples in a blinded manner because we wanted to make sure when one lab detects, yes, a positive, the other lab should detect exactly that sample
mm,
also positive. Then we are, there's no room for error. You can't just, very glibly say, oh, we've got a positive and then retract our statement. So we were sort of, there was a lot of pre, drill, if I may say, or a preparedness before the samples actually came and we could go public to say SARS-CoV-2 had come to India. So
mm,
those were very stressful times,
mm,
but also exciting in the sense, in anticipation that any day we could get a positive. And from there, it has been literally, it was one journey because we detected the first cases. We had went on to view it, see it under the electron microscope. Imagine seeing this virus, that was wrecking such havoc all over the world. We were
mm,
able to view it from the throat swab of a patient under the electron microscope. We made our own antibody detection assay that was used for 4 of India's national surveys. We did antiviral testing. We made human immunoglobulin against the virus. We did a whole pile of things. We trained other labs. We made India self-sufficient for testing. Initially, we were importing reagents from overseas, but
mm,
those reagents stopped coming into India
mm.
because the whole world started testing.
True.
So we could not source any reagents from overseas. And then Indian companies started submitting their candidate kits to us. So we validated more than 500 kits, and we could shortlist some kits to say, okay, these are good to go. And that was part of India's Atmanirbharta. We became self-sufficient. So that I felt was a good contribution to India at a time when we had to really ramp up our testing given our population. And then we did a lot of, we created biorepositories. We trained so many labs and we sent out about 64 lakhs of RT-PCR kits to the length and breadth of the country. Even the most far-flung. During the, when we had the lockdown, the armed forces helped us. The Udhan services helped us reach these kits to even the Northeast.
Right.
So we were very blessed to have even the highways, they helped us ship something on the road. Even the railways helped us when we needed their help. So those kind of, overtures from other, ministries in the country were really, really very timely for us. And then by April of 2020, Bharat Biotech came forward saying we would like to do a vaccine with y'all. And then the rest is history. We worked with them through preclinical trials. Then they did their clinical trials. And then Covaxin came into being. It was a lot of hard work to do the preclinical trials, even to get the monkeys to work with a number of golden hamsters first, then the monkeys. And to do it all, with the start of the lockdown where people were getting sick, trying to keep people healthy so that we had a critical mass of scientists and laboratorians who could do all that we had to do in a very, very escalated pace. As you know, the vaccine took a little over 10 months to come into being. So apart from that, in the midst of all that, we had Zika outbreaks, avian flu outbreaks, a number of other virus outbreaks. Mpox happened in 2022. So a lot of other outbreaks were happening, and we had to do what we had to do for COVID, as well as being the national laboratory, provide our efforts to the central team to go and investigate these outbreaks in different parts of the country. And I think, to me personally, my biggest achievement, I feel, was that I was able to hem together an excellent team. It was teamwork, Dr. Shamsundar. We were able to get together best scientists who worked in a very, focused manner towards achieving the goals that we wanted to achieve. So that was my time spent in Pune. Very pleasant memories, tough times, but I look back sort of with a sense of gratification.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a lot of hard work and a lot of, sleepless nights, I suppose, doing all this in such challenging times as well. Yeah.
It was, but again, I give the credit to the team.
Yes, it's not possible without a team. Yes, definitely. Yes, that's amazing. Really amazing. Yeah. So now we have, all this the HPV tests coming to the cervical cancer screening landscape. So how do you think how is it the screening landscape is going to change, and is it that really going to work wonders with screening? What do you think?
I think already we have seen, I'm sure in your space too, you're seeing that slowly HPV DNA testing is overtaking pap smear as the primary screening test. Of course, there's a very big role for cytology as well in the arena of cervical cancer screening. But with regard to HPV-based tests, we are going to see a lot of novel technologies coming. We might reduce the need for screening for, 14 high-risk types. We might prioritize to just 7 or 8 of the most, carcinogenic HPV types. And that might probably bring down cost. So we will see the cost coming down. We might see a lot of precision coming into cervical cancer screening. We might start looking at, say, methylation markers for the host and of the virus. We might look at miRNA markers, oncoproteins, a number of, even virus protein like the E4 protein. A lot of these proteins probably will become important over time, which would give you a higher predictability of whether this woman is going to progress to cancer. So I see that precision, cost effectiveness, and the need to get familiar with a lot of novel technologies is going to be the future in this space, as well as coupled with the use of colposcopy images and the use of AI, of course, which will enhance the the order of cancer screening, and also the prognostication for the clinician would be much better, I believe. So I think this is a very exciting space, and the next few years we are going to see a lot of new things coming into the arena.
So what do there are so many of these labs are offering different types of tests, and everybody says, yes, we do HPV, PCR. So how can one actually make sure that this test is okay? This test is a standard test. How can because we hear gynecologists saying, okay, yes, we are getting the HPV test. This lab is giving it for us. So how can they ensure that this is a correct test and this is okay to be done, and this is okay? If it's negative, then we can be sure. How can they be sure about that?
I'm so glad, Dr. Shamsundar, you asked me this question, because, as a laboratorian, I have seen even when HIV test came into the market, somebody would say, oh, I've got a 25 rupee test or a 10 rupee test, why don't we use this? Mm-hmm. So, yes, of course, cost is a concern, which is really has a big influence in its wider usage in a country such as ours. But to me, quality is the most important aspect of that will decide what test we can use. So as far as international kits are concerned, which are FDA approved or CE marked, there are now many tests, right from cartridge amplification, which is the expert assay, right up to really high throughput assays. If you think something like the Roche, the Roche 68,000 or 58,000, it gives you the capacity to really test a large number of samples, more useful, say, if you're doing a community-based study. But I think what should guide us is the quality and the performance of the assay we select. And for that, many of us may have heard about when you hear about a new assay, you need to read the literature to find out whether it was really clinically validated. In that, some of you may have heard about the Myers criteria. It was a publication in 2009, where they have compared 800 plus samples, about at least 60 positives, from SIN2 and beyond. That means SIN2 and more severe form of cervical interepithelial neoplasia, and about at least 800 SIN1 and less. It could be negative, or lesions that are not anywhere near SIN2. So you have to look at a panel such as that and compare it with an internationally accepted assay. So you take a panel of the samples I just mentioned and see the performance of the new assay. How does it perform against a internationally acclaimed comparator assay using this panel of samples? Be it self-collected samples or clinician-collected samples. Today, we will be seeing urine coming into the arena as well. So we need to know whether that particular assay has achieved clinical validation. Number two, if a lab is running a particular assay, have they been able to compare their performance against a WHO external quality assurance program? So they, by volition, a lab can ask WHO to send them a coded panel, and the lab can test it, whichever assay they've chosen, send back the results, and then WHO will give you your rating. If your rating is abysmal, then you need to really see how you're performing the test, or maybe choose another test.
Right.
A more cost-effective way is have an inter-laboratory comparison with an accredited lab. For instance, our lab, we have been running this WHO external quality assurance from 2010. We have 15 years of participation. We are accredited for HPV. So if some lab or some hospital wants to test their HPV testing performance, they can ask us and we will send them a coded panel and they can test out how their performance is. That is a ready reckoner way of knowing the laboratory's own performance. And then, of course, it is great if you can also have some amount of clinical validation. Like if I am calling out a SIN3 as HPV negative, I think I need to repeat that assay or test it in another assay. We should be in the laboratory end willing to, retest or, cross-check ourselves on some other platform so that we know when we say it's negative, it is negative for whatever reason. Yeah, there are occasional even cases of invasive cancer, which may be HPV negative. We know that. But before we release that result, we should be really, really sure. I always tell my laboratory colleagues, we should not give a result. We must give the result. The result which is absolutely spot on.
Yes.
So that is where I would say testing in India should go. And also, for instance, recently you must have heard about the ICMR AIM study which they did with IR, where they got samples from overseas and, 1,000+ samples, and they validated 3 Indian assays. The TrueNat assay performed very well. I would like to say we did it independently. We collected our own samples. We didn't get it from IR. We collected prospectively 300+ samples of SIN2 plus and beyond and negative samples. And we did find that TrueNat did perform the best among the 3 made in India assays that we tested. The other 2 need to improve. We need to be positive in encouraging other Indian companies to, improve their product. But I would also make an earnest plea to Indian companies that they maintain consistent quality. See, the difference between FDA approved assays is they are so reproducible. If you test it, I tested, XYZ tested, you will get the same results with the same sample. Whereas if, a new entry into this, entrant into this field, they should make sure that their assays are very robust, very reproducible, so that more and more confidence is built in the minds of the clinicians so that we can use our own made in India product. And of course, it's likely to be a lot cheaper than those that we would import for HPV testing.
Yes, that would be very helpful. Having our own tests, more of our own tests too.
Yes. But it has to be built on consistent quality. That's really, really important.
So have you made guidelines for these companies, how they can actually develop these tests?
So actually, the guidelines, they know today that maybe 14 genotype test panel may come down to 8. They have been made aware about the Myers criteria. That, you're not going to validate based on 2 samples you got from this hospital and another 5 samples from another hospital, and to say, oh God, we got 100% results. Validating, you have to actually correlate it with the clinical the histopathological staging of that particular patient. So they now are aware that it is not merely testing a handful of samples. It is a much more involved process. And yes, I have been working with 3 companies very closely. Actually, 4 companies, 4 made in India companies. They are, of this, I think TrueNat has performed the best. The other 3 need to go back to the drawing board, and they can actually improve themselves, because I saw that with COVID. There were Indian companies that rose to the occasion and were able to perform good, even compared to multinational products. So I think if they go back to the drawing board, I think it's possible. That would definitely complement our efforts towards, enhancing the cervical cancer screening and our vaccination drive, so that we can reduce cervical cancer in our country.
Yes, that would be really something, to look forward to, having more tests,
Yes.
and which, people can afford. Like, like we had the COVID testing, anybody could, they can actually do it at home, do it yourself, themselves. So we should have something like that. We can, with HPV, that would be wonderful.
So as I mentioned earlier, urine testing is going to come in a very big way, you can see that the literature is getting more and more crowded with urine-based tests. In our experience, urine has been excellent. In
Right.
fact, we worked with about 100 plus SLE women, women who had SLE. It had 100% correlation with clinician collected samples. And the women loved giving the urine sample, because till now it has not become part of clinical practice. Like in HIV infected women, they have to have a pap smear. That's part of NACO guidelines. But with SLE positive women, it's not part of their management. So to get them to take a clinician collected specimen for HPV testing was a huge effort. Some of them were very sick women, but we asked them to give a urine sample. They were delighted to comply.
Right.
And we also did this in women who were coming for gynecological screening. And they too, as you know, loved giving the urine sample. It trumped even self-collected samples. And of course, it can never match clinician collected, but there was at least 83% concordance between a clinician collected sample and urine. So that's pretty good,
Yes.
so that it makes it would lend itself definitely to community-based studies, and particularly if you want to look at post-vaccine studies in young girls who have received their vaccine. Urine would obviously be the only specimen we can take from young adolescents.
Yes, that would be really good and really very, very practical, actually.
Yes, yes.
So, Priya, let us tell us something about yourself, about your hobbies and your interests, apart from work.
My hobbies are, I love music of any kind, particularly instrumental music. In fact, when I was in NIV Pune, it was not just chasing vaccine or chasing the virus. Being director, I had to go through this whole pile of, files that came to me, which I had to sign, and I was new to the government system, and instrumental music really calmed me and made me, more sort of confident of what I was doing. It had a very calming influence on me. I love music. I also love baking. And my new interest is gardening, particularly trying to grow up, new kinds of, and I've understood that plants are pretty much like people. Different plants like different amounts of sunlight and different amounts of water. It's not, you can't treat them all the same way. I'm learning that. This is my recent discovery. So yes, and I like people. I love kids. I can't wait to become a grandmother. I'm not yet a grandmother, hopeful grandmother. So that's as far as, and I like people. Yes, I like interacting with people.
That's nice. Yeah. So tell us about, there was a movie which featured you. Tell us something about that.
So, yeah, that actually, you must be knowing who uh, acted on behalf of me. Uh, do you know who it was?
No.
Okay, this was a famous Maharashtrian actress.
Mhm.
Um, um, uh, suddenly blanking out now. Let her name come to me. So she actually did my role. Her husband, who is um, why am I blanking out on both names? I've reached that stage in my life where so the movie is called Vaccine Wars,
Uh-huh.
and she was the director, and her husband was the she was the producer. Her husband was the director, and they came to interview me and ask me about what was my contribution. This movie is primarily based on the Director General Dr. Balram Bhargav's um, uh, uh, take on the making of the Covaxin, the indigenous Indian vaccine. So it has a very ICMR centered, Delhi ICMR headquarters centered take, but it also focused a lot on the struggles of what Pune went through. And yeah, I got some spotlight because I happened to be director at that time. It also showed a bit of the struggles of my scientific colleagues there, the women colleagues who struggled a lot, again, balancing family and huge pressure for work during the pandemic. So it brought that out really, really strongly. And yeah, I suppose there were some artistic liberties taken, as in all movies. But to some extent, I would say 80% of it was absolutely true. The challenges we went through, the triumphs we faced, the kind of pushback, the challenges of interacting with media. Media was hungry for knowledge, but for us, our pressures were to deliver on the scientific front. And, journalists are very keen to get the information out there, which was sometimes at crossroads for me, because for me, I always felt my scientific obligations and, keeping my colleagues motivated and standing behind them at such, really pressured uh, uh, times was more important than my engaging with the media at that time. I did engage. I engaged a lot with the media, much more than I would have personally liked to at times like that. But I suppose that came with the job. So yeah, so it's called Vaccine Wars. And may I just, I don't know why I blanked out. May I uh, just completely blanked out. Bear with me.
No problem.
Yeah. So the movie was made. Oh God. Vivek Agnihotri and Pallavi Joshi.
Oh,
So
Pallavi.
Vivek Agnihotri was the director,
Wow.
and Pallavi Joshi, who is a three-time national award winner. She was very much, she's been very popular on the silver screen, and it was amazing. We never met. She
Mm.
just watched a video that her husband's team took of me when they visited Pune, and we just interacted on Zoom, I think once or twice. And people say she enacted me in very, very, very realistically. She
Yeah.
even she kind of selected the kind of saris I wear, and she even wore the sari the way I wear it. So I mean, she is a true professional. I'm sorry, I just blanked out with their names because actually we are very much in touch.
Mm.
Pallavi Joshi and me. She's an amazing lady, and It was very nice. I was honored to be the person whom the role that she took up. I was truly honored because she's a very, very professional person as an actor. And yes, we went for the premiere, and it was quite an emotional thing to watch the movie because it brought back all those, those very stressful times. I must say that I had a big lump in my throat and my eyes were welling up because it brought back all those really, pressure cooker moments that we went through at that time. But then collectively, we were able to do something good. And it was nice because at the end of all this, Dr. Balram Bhargav actually told me that, I know I put huge pressure on you, but, the times called for that. And, we have a, very good relationship now. But in those days, I presume he was under a lot of pressure. I was under a lot of pressure. And one thing I decided was I couldn't afford to pass on that pressure to my colleagues because they were the ones who were doing the job and I was orchestrating that. And I couldn't afford to demoralize them. And some of them lost their parents. A few of them lost both parents. So it was very hard times for my colleagues. I'm sure that, there are stories about others in other parts of India. But for me, that was really very painful seeing what they went through.
Yes.
And some of our sick colleagues, I told them for a period of time, work from home, don't even travel to and I had to produce special passes so the police would allow them to come to the institute during the lockdown. Otherwise, the police wouldn't allow them to, drive across the city. So we had to do things like that. And I think everybody rallied around so well. So I deem it a big honor that I was director of such an institute in such difficult times. And I look back
Yes.
with very many good memories.
You did an amazing job. I think you actually, got our country tide over that big pandemic. I think our country finally did better than the other countries ultimately.
Yes, we did much better as far as even our testing, and there was not that much of even the anti-vaxxer sentiment was much less than some of the developed countries. People took the first and second dose. We had a very, very high coverage of the first and second dose. And considering our country is so, so complex and the COVID platform and the efforts taken by healthcare workers to, reach out to our more, remote areas of our country. We've seen all those videos. And I think ICMR even took the effort to send out vaccine to the Northeast using drones.
No. Okay.
So a lot of effort was taken. And I think all in all, yes, it was complex. No country got it perfect. No country in the world got it perfect. But I think given the complexity and how populous our country is, I think we, all in all, I should say, did a pretty good job.
Yes, I'm sure you will feel very satisfied of that period, the work that you did.
But I can't help but saying that again, I owe it to my colleagues. I hate to, take any of that credit for myself. I would just share all that with my colleagues in Pune.
Definitely. Yes, so Dr. Priya, it's been wonderful speaking to you, and it's learning so much from you about the world of the microcosm and the world of the microbes and how it's so important for all of us, actually. So it's been very, very nice having you. Thank you so much for sharing all your experience.
Thank you so much. I just want to anecdotally say that when I used to tell people I'm professor of virology, this is prior to the pandemic, most people interpreted it as professor of biology. Now every person in India and the world knows there's a discipline like virology and they know about viruses. So I think the pandemic has helped to, enhance that knowledge base that, these microbes can wreak quite a bit of havoc.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Now everybody, yes, every layperson knows that it is a virus. What a virus means. So when we
Yes.
talk about HPV, they know, yes, it's a virus, and then they know that they know about COVID, and so that's how they are able to relate to it. Yes.
And
So
also vaccine, I think now they understand that vaccines can benefit,
mm,
they can be, I think India doesn't have, compared to some countries, the anti-vaxxer sentiment is not that bad.
yes,
That's my understanding. I don't know how you feel.
true. There have been some on and off there are some anti-vaxxers, but
Yes.
hopefully they are not so many to actually influence the rest of the
Yeah.
population.
Yes. Yes.
And hopefully we should have the Indian vaccine also being delivered from the government. So
Yes. Yes.
that will be another, and that will be an excellent achievement for our country in the sense.
Adding to this, there is another I don't know whether you heard of a company called eBiologicals in
Mm,
Hyderabad. They have been the technology from a Rec Bio, which I think is a Chinese company. They have transferred the technology to eBiologicals for a 9-valent vaccine.
right. Okay.
So, e-biologicals may also take up manufacture, which would be good for us. So, two companies, at least in India, taking up the challenge of vaccinating so many of our girls.
Yes.
So that's a positive news that I've heard very recently. And I personally verified it with one of the scientists from eBiologicals, and he confirmed that they are going to be also beginning manufacture once the full transfer and all the paperwork is done.
That would be really wonderful. Yeah, we have more vaccines and more tests uh,
Yes.
from coming out from India, indigenous tests. So thank you so much again, Priya, for this wonderful time that in this discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good evening. Yeah. Bye.